chicken nugget is rising.
All right, all hail chicken nuggets, and welcome to another episode of the Webflow Show, where we take Webflow seriously and really nothing else, except for chicken nuggets. Well, we have another all-timer for you today. As always, it's me, your boy Hien, and my boy Matt.
What up?
And we're here to drop another banger for you. Like I said, just good to mention that all times. Another banger, no skips.
Swear to God.
So, if you're feeling the vibes and you're into chicken nuggets the way that we are, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe for future shows, and make sure you never miss out on the most fun you could possibly have talking about design, Webflow, and no-code dev. And obviously, some of the most random TikTok clips this side of the Mississippi River. If you've
we'll
seen
also hit you with some of the best random TikTok clips this side of the Mississippi, which is near and dear to my heart as I sit here in Nashville for a couple of these episodes.
Well, with that said, let's start the show.
Let's do it.
Most important thing is I have to ask you, Matt, what's your go-to chicken nugget dipping sauce?
This is a great question because my wife and I, like when we have no energy to make a proper dinner, hit these like Costco chicken nuggets pretty hard. So for me, it's always coming. I'm finding that I always settle on barbecue sauce of some sort. In reality, I think if I was trying to flash some fancy chicken nugget sauces out there, I'd be lying. It's just whatever barbecue sauce we have on hand.
That makes sense. I'm a mustard guy myself, so I'm gonna go with either honey mustard or some sort of spicy mustard.
Yeah, I think we don't have honey mustard on hand. That could maybe work for me, but it's not a condiment that we just have. So you guys have a better condiment game, basically.
Yeah, our fridge is mostly condiments, and don't think there's much else in there. It's just a bunch of condiments. But I did wanted to point out, because I pointed out to you, but for anybody who is watching this episode right now and have just seen that All Hail Chicken Nuggets clip, my favorite part of that, aside from the chicken nugget necklace that woman's wearing, which raises a lot of questions, is the fact that as soon as you start that video, you can hear a kid in the background and his little kid innocent voice saying, "Bowser's fucked."
Which I still haven't heard. Like I'm still I listened to the clip over and over. It's there though. I've seen it in the comments.
and I always laugh, like realizing this woman has probably tried to record this clip like 100 times that day and just was like, fuck it. This is as good as it's gonna get. The kids are rowdy as fuck. I got kids in the background talking about Bowser. Yeah, this is it.
Her misery while doing like a serious thing with a chicken nugget is what makes the video for me. Just like shout out to teachers out there, just doing stuff like that. I would have bailed out far before I got to maybe a chicken nugget will get their attention. So shout out to the creativity for that teacher. Hang in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And hopefully Bowser's fine.
Like I said, it's time to move on to our main event. So we're going to do that. So our main event for today is the common challenges that modern marketing teams are facing. And we're covering this topic, even though we're not marketers ourselves, is the fact that we are doing a series on how Webflow can help you as a marketer be more efficient and effective. And we just thought that it probably makes sense to talk about some of the challenges that you are dealing with as a marketer to kind of show you how Webflow can support you. Because if it doesn't help you, then it's useless, right? So we want to really kind of touch on that so we can lay out the landscape that, to show basically why it's hard for marketers out in these streets. And they'd be tough. So, and at the end of the day, especially in the world that we live in now, which is fast and digital, as a marketer, you have to be very nimble. You have to be quick and be able to jump over sticks. If I remember that rhyme correctly. Because working for your organization, you definitely want, as a marketing team, your goal is to help push them forward and help them scale. And you got to get things done or you don't do those things. So yeah, there's no pressure there.
Yeah, and I think too, when we're talking about this kind of topic is, like we're not marketers, but we're often solving marketers' problems. Like, so we kind of come at it from this different angle of like, we obviously can't solve like all marketing complexities and problems, but we do hear, like they're a part of all the conversations we have with websites, either functionally like what we can solve, but also just when we're talking through goals and things, those usually come from marketing teams, and if they don't, they should. So that's, maybe we have an interesting perspective on that, just kind of coming from outside looking in.
Yeah, exactly. And I think just to reiterate that fact is, like, as we said, we're not marketers, but when we have our initial conversations with our clients, we don't really, at the end of the day, we care about making sure they have a great looking website that represents their brand. But ultimately, we want to be able to help them solve their business problems. And we talk to a lot of marketers and marketing teams, marketing directors, what have you, and they're coming from this business perspective and these challenges that they're having. So, it's important for us to kind of like acknowledge that and talk about those things. And as we said, having had these conversations multiple times, a billion times at this point, because we've built a bajillion Webflow sites, it's hard out there for these marketers. As we've said, you got to stay on trends. You got to think about best practices that constantly keep changing. Your marketing stack, even though we prefer you not stack marketing and you stack pancakes instead, you still need a stack to kind of keep things going. You got to think about your strategy that works for you and your business and your industry, platforms. All these things can make your head spin. And just to make things even a little bit harder, because things weren't tough enough, we got to light that ring on fire for you to jump through. You're doing all this stuff with really limited resources at the end of the day. So whether you're looking to your left or looking to your right, you're faced with an endless sea of challenges and barriers. And we've narrowed that shit storm down to 4 challenges that we see a lot and we encounter a lot with our clients. And we're not just going to share those with you.
That'd just be cruel.
It would. We're going to share some solutions that we gathered from some of our marketing buddies and clients out there to see how they've addressed these things. So don't take it from us, take it from them. Because again, we are not marketers. It's kind of like our legalese here for this video is that we are not marketers.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We don't even really play one on TV, and we're only playing it on YouTube for one. But maybe something that gives a little bit of comfort is like we're mostly like a medium in this thing. It's just like these are things this information is basically like from marketers that we're working with. So really, our stupidity in this area is really bolstered by all those marketers in different circumstances that we've worked with, and seeing what actually kind of comes out as successful for them. So hopefully that gives little credence to it. I'm sure PolitiFact is checking everything that we say. So that's a little disclaimer for them.
And I'm sure you already understood Matt's analogy there, but I'm just gonna hit you harder with it, with a really weird example of we're the Whoopi Goldberg to their Patrick Swayze. It's like they're ghosting themselves into us, and we are just automating it for you. So
I was gonna go down a route of like a show that I think was on CBS. I'm just assuming called Medium, and like I think Jennifer Love Hewitt was in it, but like I'm not sure of any of those 3 facts. So I'm glad you scooped that up with a better more retro reference for sure. Sorry to all the Medium fans out there if it's a real show.
Yeah, that I don't know if it's a real show either, but based on the little synopsis in which you described, it sounds like a perfect CBS show. But with that said,
and hit me up, CBS.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll jump into numero uno challenge right now. So Matt, what's the first challenge that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think we may as well get the money one right out of the gates. It's like everybody's thinking it, and especially marketing world. You go into meetings with marketing, you maybe just got your budget set a little bit, and then you got to go into the next meeting because that budget was ridiculous, and then you end up looking a lot like this.
Give me money. Money me. Money now.
And you do need a lot now. And it's true that you do need a lot. There's so many things that get wrapped up under the bundle of marketing. Like we have that a little bit in design world of, design means everything you can think of to ask a designer. In marketing, it's like 10x that, right? Like there's a new platform you might not even heard about that you are probably in charge of creating content for. Like as we record this, it's incredibly difficult there, and it's changing all the time. So we'll get into a little bit more, but just getting the money part out of the way. Like money is really the lifeblood of a marketing department, more so than anyone else. Like everybody needs money and resources and things like that, but there are things you just simply cannot accomplish that you're probably expected to accomplish as a marketer without that money. Especially, like if you're trying to grow, you're trying to promote a new product, whatever it might be. It's this sort of inescapable truth that everyone, that's all too common with marketing is, that we hear all the time. It's like, you're trying to make $1 into 10, basically. You're trying to find the best ways to do that. So you're always trying to like squeeze the most out of every marketing dollar. Which is just really difficult to do. Like you have ad spends, you have website design that you're trying to do. You're trying to figure out if you should build a new landing page. You're trying to figure out if you have the budget to make a video that you really actually need. And all these things fall under marketing. And it's a great deal, and takes a lot of time or obviously money to just push those things through and get them into reality. So, just getting that out of the way right at the top.
Yeah. Well, talk about money. I think this is a good time for us to take a moment and mention our sponsor.
Let's do it.
Dead Air.
Sponsored by Dead Air, because we do not have a sponsor currently. So if you're interested, hit us up. And yeah, we'll kind of move on to challenge number 2 then, because there was not much there. So Matt, what's the second challenge that we see marketing teams experiencing?
Really like hiring quality talent, like for all these things. So not only is it difficult, like let's say you get that budget to bolster your team, add 2 new bodies, to that list, like maybe a social marketing person, or maybe somebody who can do some graphic design work as well as wear like 9 other hats, like, kind of what you need. That person's incredibly hard to find. And every marketing resume often looks like you can do all those things because that's just what's expected. Because marketing is so broad. It's so hard to, like even stand out on resumes. Just talking with people in the field that are trying to get jobs in marketing that are very talented, they can have 15 things that they are actually really good at. And someone's going to ask them about, 16 and 17. Can you do that also? Which just speaks to how difficult marketing is. But then you're obviously begging the question of, like, how do you find quality in someone who's having to do that many different things, much less one, right? Like we've been through that even for ourselves, right? Like we're 2 of 2 employees here, so we don't do a lot of hiring, but we'll work with contractors or whatever all the time as well. But even for us, like we just are consistently limiting what we focus, our world on, so that we can be really high quality in those things. So going out and trying to find that level of focus within the marketing industry that requires you to be so good at so many things and wear so many different hats is incredibly difficult. And the budget that you did get probably does not align with the like $750,000 salary you might need to find this like unicorn out there, right? So again, you're compromising on quality somewhere, or you're going to find somebody that has never really run ad campaigns before, but they're really good at, social engagement or something like that. There's so many trade-offs in the marketing world. And that's a really difficult thing to do, in business, but again, especially in this world. So you're trying to build a team with as many skills as you can that align with just doing really well on probably 5 of the things that you might be expected to be crushing it full time on. So it's a very difficult thing, and it's obviously time consuming. And even if you do eventually find that person, they're certainly going to not likely to knock down your door and just say, "Here I am." They're probably employed if they can do all these things really, really well. So it's a difficult task to do, and you don't know when you're really going to find that person. And oftentimes you're taking a chance, and hopefully it works out. But it's a really difficult thing to find quality talent anywhere. And again, because of these other problems we talked about on the money side, because it's such a broad field, the expectations are just really, really difficult. So you're making trade-offs somewhere. It's just hard to sort of also have people outside of marketing see a successful hire if maybe they aren't checking all 18 boxes that you were sort of tasked with setting out to do, but they're really great at 2 or 3 things. It's just a very hard thing to do and have people understand the quality when they see it, because it's probably not in so many different areas.
Yeah, and this is all obviously assuming that you are clear on what you need versus what you want as well. Like we've seen that and heard just from our clients tell us that like we thought we needed this thing, but really at the end of the day we needed this. And it's hard, especially if that's not like a thing that's really your area of expertise. Like you might be the marketing director, but you may not be a social media person. That's not your strong suit. You got to hire for that. How do you hire for that? Like, how do you even know what a good social media person looks like? So
yeah,
it's just,
and if you're scrolling through like HR hiring TikTok or whatever, you're going to get the hire slow, fire fast kind of tips and stuff like that. It's like, that's hard to do. Like nobody puts that like asterisk next to it, but that's hard to do like over and over. It is probably how you eventually solve that problem, but that's a grind to go through that, like knowing you're probably not going to like hit a home run on the first hire just because it's incredibly hard to do. Like then you're firing people and then you're hiring people and like you're spending an enormous amount of your time that's already spread thin on just trying to find that talent. So it's just a very difficult thing to do. And it's part of why we're doing this series, right? Is like maybe our little part in helping out that world is like helping people understand Webflow more so that they can own their website and not spin their wheels, at least in our little neck of the woods. So hopefully we can, take 5% of that kind of load off by doing that and making it as easy as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So we got no money, no talent. What's challenge number 3?
But that's a great intro back to me. No money, no talent. That was my nickname in basketball. But we've touched on it a little bit too. I think they all tie together in marketing. They're all sort of downstream from this idea that marketing is one thing to people, but it's 700 in the reality and the expectation category. And then on top of that, you have these changing consumer preferences that tie to all these things and are driving like why you need to care about TikTok today and Snapchat tomorrow, or whatever it might be. We have to constantly adjust to the behavior that's out there. Like we have to do it in design trends as well. Like sometimes video works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes people are trying to get people to subscribe to their social media. Sometimes it's email. Depends on the business, depends on your goals, if you're direct to consumer or whatever. But all these different challenges are exacerbated by the fact that, consumers now have so many more options than ever before. Content is different on all of them, like what works and what doesn't, what type of talent you might need to create them. You might need good writers sometimes, you might need on video talent. Like that's just amazing. Like these guys, like obviously video is super strong point for us. But you just have to be able to kind of do that. And it's just like, it just goes to show like you could have a great writer who never wants to be on video. So it's like, now you don't have that person on your team, but that the 2 videos you were able to make are getting twice the engagement that your, guide to your product or whatever used to get. So you really have to figure out how to do those things and how, like now you're figuring out how to produce video. Like there's more that goes into it than you would want. So it just gets back to that point of just like nothing's stationary in marketing. Like you have to have people who constantly want to learn and evolve to what the market is requiring. And, the challenge again, much like the hiring process, is just finding the balance between jumping on every new marketing trend, finding a TikTok superstar. How long is that going to last? Nobody really knows. There's not that many experts in new platforms. So just finding that balance of like which ones you're going to jump on and which ones you're just going to say, like we can't get distracted by that. we know our consumers well, and we're making a strategic bet on X, Y, and Z.
One that we constantly see where the marketer is trying to ask us to do certain things, but we recognize that it's definitely not best practice from a consumer preference and UX, and those are like pop-up like subscribes like on exit or like chat. Those are things that we get asked to implement sometimes, and we just have to tell them like, we can do this, but nobody wants to see this, like this is not a thing anymore. Like the only time you should ever have a chat is on your support page, because that's the only time people want to chat with you. They don't want to chat with you on your homepage. That's just not a thing. But people jumped onto this thing, and I think you've said it before, where marketers make marketing tools and like things obsolete because it gets oversaturated and it changes people's preference for it. Either they start to like it and then they hate it, and you got to jump off of it once people hate it. And it's hard to stay on top of that when you got all these other things you got to deal with.
Like we'll see it too, like even, one of the really simple ones that sometimes get overlooked, and you know these kinds of websites when you see it, is like conflicting CTAs, right? And that usually comes from trying to build an email list while also trying to get social following, while also trying to book meetings. And there's just like a button everywhere. And like, consumers are not good at like deciphering which one of those things they should do, right? You obviously want to have different types of actions at different parts of the funnel, but oftentimes they're all on one page. It's just sort of like, it's like, I guess like I just ended up following a TikTok account because that was near me at the bottom of the page. But, what I actually do is read newsletters, but I'm not going to go search around for it. So that's like the easiest way. Oftentimes you can almost see like if a marketing / web design meeting sort of went wrong is you get there, or over time those CTAs get changed because there's a new trend. But nobody took that step back to think about like, well, that actually doesn't matter as much as our email list. Like that's our bread and butter. That's how we sell products. We have a 12-month sales cycle, that we can actually nurture through email lists that we know gets good engagement. That's not to say don't go out into other things, but that's where you maybe test out, follow us on TikTok, and don't have people follow you on TikTok if you don't have TikTok content, like stuff like that. There's so much that goes into it. And I think that's our angle oftentimes, is like, we're making the interface, or the first interface that customers often will have with the brand is the website. They're going to go there to kind of find that out. And if you're jumping on this trend and you have one video, or one post on Instagram or whatever, and they get there, they're just like, why would they follow that? Right? They're like, more to come. It's like, is there more to come? Like, you're probably out there trying to scramble to figure that platform out. So there's nothing of value there is the important thing at the end of the day. So, we're always big fans of like, where do you provide the most value right now? And what's the other one that you're going to maybe build in the new year? So let's build the website to focus on those things. Because otherwise you're screwed if you're trying to satisfy all these platforms, and your customer will kind of feel that probably unconsciously, but they just sort of will be vaguely confused about where to go to work with your brand. So yeah, sometimes CTAs are the easiest way to kind of follow or notice when that's gone awry.
Cool. So we got no talent, no monies, changing preferences. Our final challenge that we see marketers dealing with is, drum roll.
It's almost a summarization of the other points, but getting your voice heard as a marketing leader is difficult. Like the way that we've seen it, especially in startup world, I think it's something like, in startup world, people know that marketing is important. So like generally, right? And like we've talked about this kind of dynamic within marketing all the time, is like, people generally are for marketing, but specifically don't understand it. Sometimes even working in marketing, it's hard to understand the specifics of it. So like, it's very hard to get heard. And I think a big reason for that is, again, the expectations are that they heard about the new social media platform, which you now need to be able to speak to. It may not matter, and you have to convince them of that, even though they read that HubSpot article about like the top 78 platforms you should be working with or whatever. You also have to sprinkle in a little understanding of design and branding and long-term strategies and short-term strategies targeted ad campaigns, and then the ever popular, making things go viral. What are we doing to make things viral this week? All these things are just sort of like expected because they're the only parts you hear about, in broad marketing world or on Twitter or wherever you are, and LinkedIn. You're kind of reading these little things which go back to the trends, and nobody has more trends than marketing. It's like more than like fashion. You get different trends that are popping up at all times, that you're educate on why, because the money ask is after that usually, right? Like you're trying to convince people that this is going to get results. And, if it was that easy to guarantee results in marketing, everybody would be doing that one thing, right? It's just a very, very hard world to be like, yeah, if we spend $20,000 on this thing, we're going to get 4,000 more clicks. It's like, nobody really knows that. Like really good marketers know tactics and strategies that can like get you to a reasonable certainty that things are going to work. And that's what everybody's doing. But, like it's just a very hard thing to do, but that's the promise people want. Like even in website world, right? It's like, oh, we're going to pay, $40,000 or whatever it is to build a brand new website. We've got new product launches and stuff coming up. Those are going to need a new home. We want it to look really great or whatever. People can see that exists at the end of that project, right? Like marketing is a little less tangible. Like we work with that on the brand side sometimes as well, right? It's not a tangible world. So it can be very hard to outline the reasons why for non-marketers to understand why, that amount of money is what's required. And really it is required to make things go viral and do all the kind of like buzzy things that float around out there. So I think there's a lot of educating that marketers have to do just to sort of, prop the door open with their foot to get to the next one. Or they're going back to the money me conversation where they're just like, because please, it's like, I've gone over this, I've made my pitch deck. Like, look, we're not going to hit our lead target this year if we're not able to at least experiment with some of these new things.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think like this one ties really well into all of them, but really ties into the money part of it. Because I can imagine, as a marketer, you're sitting there with all these other leaders in the company, and you're essentially fighting for a dollar that the company has to give out, and sales is going to ask for that dollar in order to probably get another salesperson, because their logic there is like, if I have a salesperson, I can close more sales. You as a marketer have to be able to, explain why you need that dollar, and get them to understand that you getting that dollar doesn't hurt them, but it helps them. So yeah, this is a lot to it. And as you said, there's seeing it from the brand side, it's really hard to show an ROI on awareness and on building equity. Like, how do you show somebody who doesn't care about that, quite honestly, why it's important and helps them, right? So,
yep. You made a great point too. Like, marketing is kind of the middle, right? It's always easier to justify the beginning, which might be like a new website or things in between that, which is why it's so broad and vague. I think sometimes the people who are not actively thinking about it all the time. But it's a good point. It's like the middle child kind of thing. It's a lot harder to explain and get attention just in that position, because they're just naturally in that part of the process. Like marketing isn't supposed to be closing sales. Like obviously if it gets closed right away and they're part of the funnel, they've done an incredible job. If you're selling SaaS software or something, you're probably a little closer to the end of that funnel than you might be if you're selling consulting services or whatever. But you're still, not quite the beginning. You're not quite the end of things. You're mixing with all those worlds. And I think, again, it's like just a little bit less defined boundaries for marketing just adds to that challenge.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely feels like one of those departments that feels important when it's working, and it feels unnecessary when people don't understand how it's working. It's kind of like I like to always think about it as like school budgets. When a school has to cut their budget, the first thing they're going to cut is the art classes. Band's going to be gone. They're not going to cut, those other core classes like English. And marketing sometimes feels like it's it's banned. It's banned class. It's like that's going to get cut. So
whatever's left,
it's an easy one to cut.
like
yeah,
whatever's
exactly.
left, kind of thing. Yeah.
And
Which
then you
is,
go back to and then you go back to challenge number 1, which is you don't have money.
right,
and just
right. And
self-sustaining economy.
It's like because the environment changes so rapidly in that world, what you need, like what platforms you need to interact with, what type of talent you need to create different kinds of content. Like, other departments have similar things to that. I just think it's exacerbated quite a bit in marketing. And it's like, I think to some extent, like the marketing audience is near and dear to us because like in the first iteration of our agency, right? Like we tried to dabble in some of these marketing worlds so that we could close some of these gaps for our clients and be more helpful. And like our immediate realization, right, was like, oh, we're not nearly good enough to be able to do this. So we have to hire 400 people, to just sort of help us get our game up to par on this. Or we have to focus on, our bread and butter stuff and really try to partner with great marketers and things of that nature. So I do think it's an audience because of our experience with it too. Is like we have a lot of respect for what's going on in all these different buckets. So much so to know that we can't do it well. And keep up with all the trends and all that good stuff.
Right. Well, with that said, those are your 4 marketing challenges that we see. No money, no talent, changing preferences, and no voice. But before we wrap things up with some spicy nugs of wisdom, we're going to get the juices flowing by opening up a can. So just going to see if there's a can worth opening today.
I don't have much. The one thing that pops into my head is like takeout food that's not good as takeout food. Like, come on, restaurants. Like, if you're not good at selling takeout food, don't do it. It does a disservice. I'm never coming back to your restaurant to try what might be great when you bring it out of the kitchen. So don't toss stuff in a bucket and hope it tastes as good as it probably does in a better format. That's all I really got there. You get some mushy food because your Uber guy took a wrong left turn. It might not be doing your business any favors. You just got that one takeout thing, but I'm probably not going to go back and be like, I wonder if it's mushy in the restaurant. So keep your heads up.
I can add to that, Ken. When the restaurant decided to mix the hot stuff with the cold stuff in the same bag, it's like, come on, man.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
it's a whole world.
Who wants to eat a warm salad? Who wants that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want a warm salad.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But so it's almost as difficult as marketing. It's like you got to find a bad guy, a guy that understands heat. That gets those things packaged up properly. But I will say on the flip side of that, when you get a really good takeout meal, like I have a huge amount of respect for that because it's a totally different thing, really. Like than serving at a restaurant. It's like equally as difficult and not the same to kind of get things out in the right order, stack them appropriately, and all those sorts of things. So look for our new business, Packaging Plus coming out soon, saving all your favorite restaurants' food.
We'll start with some chicken nuggets. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like pizza. Nobody's ever thought about that.
Well, with that said, we'll move into our final segment here before we close things out, which is our nugs. So we got all hail wisdom nugs. We got a 4-piece today for you to help you out. Coincidentally, we got 4 pieces of nugs for your 4 challenges. That we kind of seems like we thought about that one through. So with that said, we'll start with our first nug of wisdom for the no monies. And the solution there is get more monies.
That's right. Find money, then tell us where you found that money. That's your first goal, and that's all we've got, I think.
Yeah, I think we're done here. So, but obviously we're joking there, but we're also not joking. Organizations approve budgets when there's some sort of assurance of an ROI. This is basically what we hear from our marketing folks, is that they got to be able to explain why, how, like you said, that giving them $1 is going to get $15 out of that. And so the more that you can assure an ROI, the better. And so make sure you have methods to measure ROI and defining those different parts of the budget and how it's going to be used. And just kind of remember, and from what we've been told, that your job is to help decision makers understand how your budget request is going to ultimately help the business meet its goals. And I think that's something that we take to heart when we always think about like our websites. It's like, how is this thing going to support your goals, and being able to tie it back to that. And it's just kind of how it works. But the other part of it is it helps our customers see that we are really caring and we are really listening to them, because we're trying to do something more than just make something look really nice. So that's nug number one. Matt, anything else to add there before I move on to nug number two?
I think you covered that one. It ties in really well with obviously the things that we hit on earlier.
Cool. All right. So nug number two is for having no talent. It's going to be challenging, as Matt said. There's the aspects of like finding the right person, getting the budget for that. What do you need them for? Do you need them for the day versus like what you want to accomplish in a year? So this one really kind of comes down to you being able to take that time, which you don't have, obviously, to think about what your needs are and versus what you want, right? So this is really important because it's not just you trying to hire for these people, it's all these other companies. So you got to be mindful about the market that's out there, the job market. Does the market favor you or does it favor your talent? Just being aware of this will kind of help you better strategically think about how you're going to build that team with the right people. So, the big takeaway here is just being able to like not only recognize that you need that talent, but taking a step back and really thinking about how you really want to, go about bringing this person on, making sure that you're very clear on what your goals and priorities are, the skills that you're looking for, and in addition to that, from just one final thing here around this is, since you have a team, it's really important to kind of get your team perspective in here as well to give you better insight, because your team's going to be working with this person, and all your marketing should tie together so it doesn't feel cobbled together. So that's wisdom number two there. That's nug number two.
Yeah, and like to piggyback on that last point, it's also understanding the talent and interest that your current marketing team already has. This is like one that I had conversations about. So, because it's so quickly changing, you might not know that like Julie is actually really interested in TikTok and good on camera just because you haven't had to do that yet or whatever. So it's always good to kind of catalog interests, even if they don't have a ton of experience, because if it's really a new platform or whatever, something you're interested in, there's not a ton of experienced people out there, right? Like that's the whole point. So often like knowing that someone has huge interest in exploring one can help you from then going out and hiring that really hard to find thing or whatever. You can just kind of turn someone loose and open up some resources for them to spend time in that area, and then hire to fill in something maybe they have less interest in that you also need. Just getting that point about how many hats are, like make sure you know which ones people really already want to wear, because if people want to grow and learn and have interest in those things, oftentimes that's how you can win on those platforms. It's just like they're already on TikTok all the time. They've already been messing around with it in their personal life, making those videos. Like they're already probably ahead of quite a few people, not at this point of the game maybe, but when that kind of came out, people didn't know what to do with TikTok. If you have somebody already into it on your team, that can be a huge asset.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think this one, we were just purely looking at it from the perspective of bringing in people, but from your point, this is about keeping the people that you have too, and this is a good way to think about it. So nice little add on there. That felt like a little barbecue sauce worth of wisdom for that nug.
There you go. Pull it all together. Another thing like to hit on, like we talked about like the issue of changing preferences, it's a kind of a good segue to that from the last bit. But, I actually heard, I think it was Sam Parr said this. I'm sure he didn't invent this, but I thought it was like, a good nug, if you will, which is, I'm going to use it as it relates to changing preferences and chasing trends and things. And he was saying, like if you already have a way to turn $1 into $2, like double down, triple down on that. It's working. Like you won't find anything better than that. Like it's obviously his very like simplistic way of point is like, that's working. Like don't abandon what's working because something new is coming out. Maybe experiment with something new a little bit, but don't do it if it's taking away from something that you already know can work, because right, those things are what help you go get more money in your budget next year, those things that are working. So good marketers already know these things, I'm sure, but like that's definitely one that really stuck with me. Like we can use that in all areas of business, but I think it's really easy to chase what's new, thinking like, oh, over there, maybe we can change $1 into $3. It's like turning $1 into $2 is literally the foundational element of business, right? Like if you're doing that and you can do it reliably, that's amazing. You've already got amazing. Like just keep doing it and pour some gasoline on the whatever that fire is, and that will probably be the most effective way to find success in marketing and open up budgets to experiment with new things or whatever you want to do next. So that was a big thing on around chasing trends and things like that. And we talked a little bit too about experimentation, how important that is. Often you can run really cheap versions of things, or it's important to find cheap versions of things. So just experiment with it. Sometimes you can even get a little bit of budget, right? Placing things under the element of experimentation, because you're saying right out of the gate, hey, you're not signing up for 4 straight years of this new expense. We just want to see how it works, and then we'll come back with our findings before we spend any other money. It's a much more sort of responsible sounding explanation way to do it. And that's a good way to kind of manage consumer preferences that are changing out there and figure out like, but does your audience care about it? Just run little experiments that can help you do that. You can do that on your website with a new landing page. You can put, the TikTok up in your bookmark bar or something like that, like whatever the flavor of the day is, and see if anybody cares. So there's little easy ways to kind of make those moves. And then just turn those things that you learn from those experiments in to your core marketing strategies, the ones that are working, and ditch the rest or try a new experiment. That can really help you feel responsible to the people that are, giving you that budget. And it literally kind of is responsible as well. And it also keeps your team focused on implementing. It's like, hey, we're doing this experiment for a month. Let's get the most we can out of this. And then it might be over, and then you make a decision instead of just like, hey, y'all, like, what's the new cool thing that's happening? YouTube clips. Let's shift our ad spend into YouTube clips. Like, I'm not suggesting that actually happens in that way, but it can in small ways, right? Where you're just maybe distracting again from that thing that's already working really well.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like that last point that you said is key. Not to say that any of the other stuff isn't, but just being able to kind of like make sure that your customers are at the forefront of these things, because you shouldn't be guessing what they're into and why they do what they do. You should be engaging with them throughout the entire process. And while that's partly on marketing to do, that's everybody else in the organization as well. But being able to work together as a team to ensure that how you are interacting and supporting your customers is the way they need it and want it, or else they're just going to find somebody else who will.
Yeah, we go through that all the time, right? With design trends, right? Like they want a new font or whatever. It's like you're probably doing your brand a huge disservice just because you found, sans serif font that you like or whatever, or like every website on earth is kind of popping up with that, or a new color or whatever. It's cool to explore those things, but ultimately it's about your audience in design and in marketing when we're talking about business websites, business marketing. The last thing to hit on is about getting your voice heard as a marketer. We talked like about some ways that you can leverage changing preferences to do that by just kind of sounding responsible with your experiments and targeted with your experiments, instead of just saying we need to hire 2 people for social media all of a sudden, right? Like that's going to be jarring. That's not going to get your foot in the door, even if you're right. So finding ways to do experiments and build some momentum, and also including them in these little experiments where you're asking them, hey, you just need to pay attention for like 2 weeks to this thing. We're going to kind of go in together. I'm going to send you an update at the end of every week on what's going on. And if it does well through X, Y, and Z, then we kind of maybe already have a predetermined agreement to fund that to go further, right? So you're kind of including them in that instead of trying to explain analytics and all those types of things. Like, this is just one part of their meeting, for your CFO or your COO, CEO, whoever's kind of running the budget. So just getting them to kind of understand and be bought in a little bit will kind of help you be heard, because they're interested in the experiment, right? They maybe aren't interested in giving you $20,000 more for your marketing budget. Like, it's like, that just sounds like you're asking for more money. So just having those specific things is a great way to get your voice heard. And lining up some experiments or things that sound palatable and targeted when you're having those discussions. Like, ultimately, they're going to want proof, but it's very hard to give proof that something will work before you do it. So experiments are a great way to get you a little bit of proof. And sometimes that's all they need, right? Like, often they're not trying to be difficult. Like, if you can find them a way to make the business more money, they will give you all the money they can possibly find, right? Including the money in their own wallet, if you can kind of show how it works.
Right.
So that also helps them raise more money on the other side of things, because they have a little bit more understanding. It sounds more interesting to VCs. It sounds more interesting to whoever's kind of funding those things, that you're running successful experiments. You're throwing out things that don't work. That can also get you credibility, as long as you kind of phrase it the right way. And too often we're all like trying to bat 1,000, right? But being transparent, running responsible experiments, showing people and explaining to them why you're doing that experiment and why you're getting rid of others, just shows that you're operating effectively. Like, good leaders know that you can't win all the time. But if you're being responsible with that money, like, we even see that too with new startups, they're trying to get grant money or whatever. Like, they have to kind of prove little experiments are working to get the larger sum of money. And I don't think it's really that much different in, internal businesses already further along than that. Like, people just want to see a little bit of evidence that you're on the right path. That's a great way to do it. And just establishing that framework, and again, trying to hit the things that you set out to do that aren't just make more monies, because they're also doing the money me speech at the end of their like $100,000 marketing budget that you gave them, and you weren't able to really capitalize or explain what happened. It's not going to be easier next time, right, to get them to kind of go down that path again. So, having a little more bite-sized things for them to understand, because they're also able to learn and not just have something explained to them and then say, money me, like 5 minutes later. Yeah. Like, if you're on the other side of that table, that's a tough pill to swallow, right? To kind of understand what's going on, right? It requires them to know about specifics, and experiments just require them to know, this is what we're expecting to happen. We put $5,000 into it, and it turns out we got like $8,500 in business out of it. Like, is this something we should pursue further? Then you're kind of having a dialogue about it. So I think that's always the best way to get your voice heard, and also just understood, like getting them to also slow down and realize how thoughtful you're being about things. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it just helps over time too, where it becomes easier and easier to get that buy-in by having the structure of kind of, like, work it this way, where at first you'll run into some resistance probably, but over time it'll be much easier to kind of get the money that you need. And you might be able to get more money than you need in order to do what you need, because you've already built that, you created that voice, and that voice that's worth listening to.
Yeah. And over time you build that trust a little bit more, as well. Like, it's like, hey, I already know they're doing the responsible things. Like, you might be able to have that cycle be a little bit shorter and more reliable for your team as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So with that, like we said, like, we wanted to cover this topic, and we're going to do a little series around kind of marketing in general, around making marketing more efficient and effective, because like we said, you got to be nimble, you got to be quick, things are coming at you fast, and it's important for you as a marketer to be flexible and agile. So, it helps you transform obstacles into opportunities, keep things moving forward. Because if you're not like a shark, if you're not swimming forward, you're going to die. And don't need to be melodramatic about it, but that's just kind of how it is. And it's just important to be able to kind of like know what these challenges are in order to kind of overcome them, to keep things moving forward as seamlessly as possible.
Yeah, and a quick shameless plug. We're going to like Hein mentioned, we're gonna make a little bit more content around this, make a series about it, and just like the shameless plug part of it for us is like just the Webflow dudes. Like Webflow can make you more flexible and more agile at all times, and that's what we're obviously all about. So think about it. Holler at your boys if we can help on that.
Yeah, definitely think about it. And and what's that? And that's it, everybody. We got another awesome banger episode in the can. New episode, same old banger flavors.
That's right. The streets are already going wild over this one, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Which is very little.
So, as always, you made it to the end. There's only two reasons for it, because you're digging the vibes here. The chicken nuggets of wisdom that we're dropping on you all day, every day. And these banger episodes, you're just loving them. You just keep dipping your chicken nuggets into your barbecue or your mustard sauce for more. Or you just click this video somehow, you fell asleep or you're not paying attention and we're just running in the background. But either way, you're here. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We would greatly appreciate that. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, we appreciate that too. So we don't have to keep playing that dead air clip.
Dead air.
And we're going to be rolling out more Webflow content on the weekly or not. Maybe on the daily. Who knows? Time is just a construct. So
it's really up to you guys. It's up to you guys. Comment. Tell us what you want. We'll make more.
Exactly. Yeah. Let us know what you want. And if there are some funny TikTok videos you want us to put in the cold open, send those to us as well. We're constantly sourcing those. So, yeah. So we'll see you next time with Fade to Black.